Hi there. Welcome to the Unblurring Plagiarism and Paraphrasing video tutorial. First, we'll talk about why we use and cite sources. Second, we'll discuss how to avoid plagiarism. And third, you'll learn how to paraphrase ideas from a source. So why is it a good idea to use sources? When you incorporate good, reliable sources in your work, you build your credibility and authority as a writer. You prove to your readers that you've done extensive research and learned about your topic. Using sources also empowers you to connect your research to larger topics in the broader context of the field in which you're working. And by adding citations, you allow your readers to access those good sources that you used. Let's take a look at how to use sources. You can quote from a source by using the same words as the source within quotations. You can paraphrase from a source by rephrasing the source's ideas and adding your own analysis or integrating material from other sources. Whenever you quote or paraphrase from a source, you must include the proper citation in order to give credit where credit is due. No matter what, never plagiarize. Plagiarism is the use of words or ideas from a source without giving credit and/or without including quotation marks. Even if you include quotes and a citation, you might still be plagiarizing if you misrepresent the source's ideas by stating that the source makes a claim which it doesn't actually make. How can you tell if you're plagiarizing? There are a few different signs to watch out for. You might be plagiarizing if you copy directly from the source without including both quotation marks and a citation, if you merely replace the original words from the source with synonyms, while still using the same sentence structure as the source, if you summarize ideas from the source without including a citation, or if you state ideas in the same order as they appear in the source. Let's do a few activities so you get the hang of identifying plagiarism versus paraphrasing. Here's some original text from a source on the left side of your screen, and on the right side is an excerpt from a paper that uses this source. Pause the video now and take a few minutes to figure out if the excerpt is plagiarizing or paraphrasing the source. What we have here is an instance of plagiarism. There are a few signs to indicate this. First, we have directly copied text without quotation marks or a citation. In the highlighted region, you can see that the paper copies the phrase, "This implies that we must expand smart object design," without putting it in quotation marks. And the material that is put in quotation marks lacks a citation. Second, the ideas in the paper are presented in the same order as they appear in the source. Notice the first idea as labeled in both paragraphs of text. And the second idea? And the third. The paper also uses many of the same sentence structures as the source. And it merely replaces words and phrases in these sentences with synonyms. For example, dual is replaced with to, highlighting the fact that is rewritten as show why, and beyond simply becomes to include. Here's another paper that uses the same source. What do you think? Is this plagiarism or paraphrasing? Pause the video for a few minutes and see if you can find out. This paper has also plagiarized from the source. Although it cites the material it borrows from the source, its citation is incomplete because it does not include all three authors of the source. The paper also misrepresents information from the source. The text in the highlighted region of the paper suggests that designers can now focus primarily on the hardware, whereas the source states that we must expand smart object design beyond hardware and software. How about this next paper? Does it plagiarize or paraphrase? Pause the video for a few minutes and try to figure it out. So here we finally have a good example of paraphrasing. There are a few ways we can tell. First, The writer has included complete citations in the correct format wherever they are necessary. Second, they have summarized and analyzed the information from the source. For example, they draw from information in the source to arrive at their own conclusions. Third, they introduce the ideas from the source in a different order. Notice how a phrase from the first sentence of the source appears only halfway through their paper. And finally, every idea that is represented in their paper has a different sentence structure than it did in the source. Even the paraphrased sentence that they've cited requires careful and attentive reading in order to be identified in the source. Now that you've gained some experience detecting plagiarism, let's go over the steps to successfully paraphrase material from a source. Begin by carefully reading the original text that you plan on paraphrasing. After reading, take some notes in your own words. Without looking at the original text, use your notes to write the information. Then, cite the source. And finally, you can add your own analysis and/or integrate material from other sources to synthesize a more comprehensive paper from your research. Now, there is no single correct way to paraphrase any given passage, but you should always remember not only to modify individual words and phrases from the original text, but also to restructure sentences and rearrange ideas. As you know by now, you need to include a citation whenever you quote directly from the source. But if you choose to paraphrase, when is it actually necessary to cite the source? You only need to cite paraphrased text when it communicates a unique idea that isn't common knowledge. Common knowledge is information that is found in many sources and is known by many people. For example, you wouldn't need to cite a source if you were writing that George Washington was the first president of the United States of America. And you also wouldn't need a citation when stating that unethical business practices contributed to the Watergate political scandal. Both of these ideas are common knowledge because they are found in many sources and known by many people. There is no real debate or disagreement surrounding either of these ideas. Now that we've discussed how to paraphrase from a source, you can try a paraphrasing exercise yourself. In this exercise, you will be paraphrasing some ideas from the article on your screen to support an argument that social media in the near future will make use of virtual reality. Pause the video for a few minutes and give this activity a shot. All right, congratulations on completing the unblurring plagiarism and paraphrasing tutorial. Please feel free to come back to the Writing Center's website if you ever want to continue learning about this or any other topic. You can also check out our blog for the latest tips and conversations on writing, and you can always find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We wish you the best of luck as you continue on your journey as a writer.